Everybody, as Jamie said, I'm Jason Busby, and I am a history teacher at Agoura High School. And really three things that I'd like to accomplish in the next couple of minutes for you guys. Some people know a lot about model schools. Some people know absolutely nothing about model schools. And so the first objective I want to accomplish is giving everybody a general sense of what we're talking about when we say Model Schools Conference. And then a couple of us are going to come up here and speak briefly about what we pulled out of the conference specifically this year and what it means to us. And one of the things I'm most excited about, and I think she's a little nervous about, is we have one of our seniors here, Wesley Lechner, who is going to give us a bit of model schools here in the practical application of what we've learned. I hope you all brought your thinking caps. Wesley has a lesson for you, and she expects you to perform well. So just giving you a warning, you have a couple minutes to prepare yourself. In terms of model schools for 2009, one of the first things we learned is that technology does not always work the way we want it to. And so my first slide didn't work. But if you go back to 1984, and when A Nation at Risk came out and kind of put this shock on the system, we started talking a lot and in depth about school reform. And a lot of that reform in the 80s and 90s focused on elementary school and middle school, and a lot of effort was put there, and very appropriately so. By the 90s, however, the thought on high schools was one of two. Either by the time they get to high school, it's too late, either we've got them or we've lost them, or schools that are successful for reasons that can't be duplicated. And you start looking at the world that our students this year are graduating into, I'm going to suggest it's very different than the world that you and I graduated into. Forces such as new technology, demographics, globalization mean that they're going into a very new world. And to demonstrate that, I just have a few quotes here. You can see, Bill Gates, you can love him or hate him, but the man has committed $30 billion from his foundation towards education and health research. And so he's putting his money where his mouth is at the very least for doing that. Some other perspectives. This is one that blew me away the first time I saw it. If you're talking about memorizing a set of content for our students, well, if 90% of your revenue in a given year is coming from something that didn't exist at the beginning of that year, that's a whole different paradigm, I would suggest, for what we're educating our students to do. Another focus is what is it exactly when we ask them to do things that we're asking them to do. Certainly we want our kids to have opportunities, we want them to have choices, but at the high school level we want them to have the full array of choices that are there and to show them the really exciting opportunities that are there. One of the most important quotes I pull out of this year's conference is that relevance is what makes rigor possible. And I think our students should be asking, they have the right to ask, why do I need to know this and how am I going to use it? And we should have good answers for that as teachers. And this very much addresses that question for a new generation of students. This is the challenge, of an America competing in the global economy as far as I'm concerned. Will we continue to be the world's leader? And Alan Greenspan is not in good thoughts right now, but I think he hit the nail on the head. If you want to address the concerns the country has across the board today, I certainly believe that education is absolutely at the heart of that. So how does model schools fit into that picture? If you look at a student today, they're going to be in a different place than what we were looking at in the past. This girl's name is Anna. And here are a couple of facts you guys can read for yourself. My students used to think writing 10 pages was hard. I suggest writing 1 page is much more difficult than writing 10 pages. And they're not. When I share this with my students, they get very excited. They're not depressed, they're not scared, they're fired up. But if this is our vision of high school, they have a different point of view. The cell phone is absolutely integral to the way teenagers learn today. I have a Kindle, and my kids get all excited when I show them my Kindle in my classroom. It's a very different paradigm. And to study this paradigm and see how we can use it best, the International Center for Leadership and Education has taken on the goal of studying what works for high schools. It has expanded that since its original mission. When Dr. Daggett founded it in 1991, he wanted to gather best practices from around the country with high schools that were working. Don't reinvent the wheel, steal. do research on what is it that our students need, and bring that together in one place where it can be disseminated to teachers, administrators, staff members, and students alike. And the Model Schools Conference is but one aspect of that. This year was the 17th annual Model Schools Conference, and you can see the successful practices, networks, gold seal lessons, which is what Leslie's going to be demonstrating for you a little bit later on today, are something that they make available, the best lessons from around the country. And so that, again, I don't have to think this all up on my own. I can get resources from other teachers who have done a lot of great work. Webinars for education and learning different ideas that are coming out. They do have consulting services and issue white papers as well. At the conference, there's really three aspects of it that I just want to hit briefly, and then I'll bring some other people up here who will talk about their impact. What grabs a lot of people's attention the first time you go to Model Schools are the keynote speakers. They're dynamic speakers. They've done fantastic research. They are experts in their field. And you really are just sitting there in awe. I think it grabs your attention. And just to give you some examples, Dr. Daggett always has the latest in national research available. What new technologies are going to be impacting us in the next 3 to 5 years? What are the trends globally? What are business leaders saying they need out of students coming out of school? Where are the jobs going to be available? And he gives that update. Ray McNulty is the vice president of the International Center. He travels around the country 300 days a year, walking into high schools and saying, what's working for you? You know, what are the students fired up about? What can we actually get done? One of the things that I like the best, they brought in 2 neurologists. And neurology is something that I knew how to pronounce, but that's about it before I went to the conference. And they're talking about how does the brain actually learn? What is the new research? And new stuff is coming out almost daily on what we know about how the human brain works, how the teenage brain works, which is not always the same thing, and what that means for us as educators when we're looking at that. And they also had Dr. Robert Brooks, who is a psychiatrist from Harvard, and he talks about the culture of a classroom. And this is just a sample. There are literally about 20, 25 keynoters that you have the opportunity to go and see when you're there. The second part is partners. And Russ Steffens and Amy Soror are going to talk to you a little bit later about one of those partners, which is the I Can Learn company, which is doing some truly fantastic things. And it gives you an opportunity to really see in a national forum what's going on and what opportunities are available. I know Joe is going to talk about online learning, which has shown, ridiculous growth in the last 5 years. Exponential growth. Yeah, it is a competitor and an opportunity for us as educators. Now, scholastic is one of the words up there you may recognize. When I think scholastic, I think like elementary school. I think I got some books that had scholastic on it. Scholastic is also the sponsor of the 21st Century Learning Skills Program. And if you take a brief look at what we're looking at here, college work and workplace and life skills, communication and collaboration, creativity and innovation, memorization of facts is not one of those skills. It's not in great demand anywhere. That's probably the most substantial change that we're talking about. And so it's another opportunity. But this is all a nice conference up to this point in time. A lot of the stuff you can get on the web. A lot of the stuff you can get by buying books and things of that nature. What for me stands out about Model Schools is the opportunity to move beyond theory and seeing how it's done. You have more than 30 model schools, about 20 high schools, 5 middle schools, and 5 elementary schools. They've expanded it since it originally started to incorporate K through 12. Who are coming saying, these are the challenges that our schools had, here are the successes we've had in changing the way we do business, here's what we're still concerned about, here's what we're excited about. And you talk to those staff members, those administrators, those teachers, and you say, tell me how I do it. And it's truly exciting to be in that place. And the thing that makes it truly unique is that you're seeing schools from around the country, that there's no way we could afford to go and visit all these schools. Just a couple I'll highlight. Zebra New Technology High School in Indiana is a model of project-based learning and integrating technology into the curriculum. They have almost every single one of their classes team-taught. And they integrate technology as often as possible when they're doing that. But the thing is, there's not a model school. There is a multitude of model schools depending on what works for your community. So if you move down the line to Missouri at Truman High School, they're a model of data-driven decision-making and small learning communities. They measure everything. And that's how they make their educational decisions. You move down the line a little bit farther to Ohio, and you get to Butler Technology and Career Development High School. They have an absolute fantastic model of modeling with the community. How do we get our students internships? How do we get our students working in the careers that they're interested in, not in theory, but in practice? And so the theory makes a lot more sense to them. They can see where they're going to use this knowledge. And then right here from California, of course. La Quinta High School, I went to their presentation, it was very interesting. They have an IB program, which we're piloting at Agoura High School. Their IB program has more than 400 students in it. It's enormous compared to ours. And they also have a fantastic plan for targeted and sustained professional development. Not just a day here or there where you have a great day and then you forget about it, but the actual plan for the staff to develop. So a lot of different opportunities that emerge. One of the things that I'll leave you with is this. It's daunting being there. I experienced tremendous guilt of, oh my God, I'm not doing any of this in my classroom, I must be a horrible educator, and incredible excitement simultaneously. And it's a huge challenge. But one of the quotes I pulled from the conference that guides me when I get a little down is this one. And we don't have 5,000 people in the room today, but we have a very important audience and very important presenters, and I believe this to be absolutely true. And so that's an overview, and I'm going to be quiet now because I talk too much. But I would like Todd Shipley to come up here. He was one of the staff members who went this year, and just speak for a couple minutes about what he found to be impressive. Todd.
To say that I was overly impressed would be an understatement with this conference. I took 60 to 70 pages of notes, and those weren't on the PowerPoint. I was incredibly impressed. I was also very feeling inadequate just from my teaching and looking at what I could do as a teacher to better myself in the classroom. A couple of things that we're trying to do in the English department at Agoura Hills, we're looking a little bit closer at what the state is actually requiring as far as their testing and the content standards. Sometimes in English, we tend to look at the broad scope of so many content standards. We're so heavy loaded in English with content standards. We need to be able to specify through successful practices and combining that with what the state is requiring, we can get a better idea of what we need to focus on in our curriculum and on our finals. The other thing we're looking at is reading programs for our freshmen. We're noticing that it's not just about their reading of literature, it's about them reading across the curriculum. And that also phases into one of our other focuses, which is writing across the curriculum right now. And we're working on programs to develop for those. I'm trying to think. Grammar and vocabulary. As Jason mentioned, they're very rote types, memorization type of activities. We're looking at ways that we can actually have them actively apply the knowledge and by group vocab tests. Debating whether the actual word fits into the sentence or not and explain why and justify it. So we're looking at a lot of different things. A couple of things that stood out to me, and Jason I think mentioned like academies or more project-centered learning. There were some interesting things that I just want to share with you. One of the ideas that came out of this was to handle physical education like a health club. We at Agoura High School, it got me to thinking that we at Agoura High Schools have a unique opportunity because we have a G building right now. We'll later have a performing arts center, but that G building could be used as a health club. Something that could be run on flex hours, something that they could have actual entire weight room set up with cards and technology that could give data on each individual student. The students would actually activate or be able to use that health club within their normal day. Something like we do in real life. And speaking of real life, that's what we're trying to do is really look at having the student take what they've learned and apply it to real life situations.